welcome to PPR Podcast number 143, a unique one indeed. Wasn't the one we were intending on having. My name is Paul. Rudy to my middle seat is Burt Grossman, the star of the podcast. It's brought to you by the San Diego Strike Force. And Burt, what unusual circumstances we're under. One, we have a guest in studio, and it's a guest who should be on a football field somewhere working spring drills or whatever.
Yeah, and thankfully I'm the president of Strike Force, the sponsor of this, so I can't get fired for any of these questions. Let's just get that out of the way.
We'll introduce our guest.
Coach Gladnick. I don't think I have to introduce you any more than that. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing as well as can be expected under the circumstances.
Well, let's start with the same question. Why aren't you the football coach at St. Augustine?
I think there's the company line. And what I was told is I wasn't in my fifth period class enough, that I wasn't assimilating into the culture of the school enough, and that there wasn't enough discipline in the program. And I'm more than happy to address all three of those things.
Well, but usually in my line of work, and I think even in academia, it takes a paper trail, no pun intended, but it takes an act of God to move someone out. This seemed rather sudden. Do you have a file somewhere with a stack of hey, you got to improve on this?
There was never a meeting, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago that said, hey, we need you to do these things or you're going to be terminated or in trouble or suspended or whatever. This was the most unprofessional, haphazard, poorly organized dismissal I've ever seen. And I've probably employed, with turnover, 3,000 to 4,000 employees. So, when they're talking to me, they're not talking to a teacher. They're talking to a person who's done this at a much larger scale than they could ever hope to.
We should mention, if you're hearing banging in the
That's
background.
That's the principal from St. Augustine trying to get in.
KUSI is undergoing a major renovation. It has started, and it's just unavoidable, so you're just going to have to deal with it.
That might have been the funniest thing I've heard in a week.
So when you say, because you said something interesting, assimilate to the culture, a culture, whatever you want to call it. Because I coach this thing. And to me, when I heard that, the thing that ringed off is, does everybody have to look like Brady Palmer, or does everybody have to look like the 15th century European that walks around with the robe and the beard and the shaved head and the robe and sandals at the game? I mean, what is the culture there that you have to assimilate to? One of the first things that the principal and I were at odds about was a culturally and racially biased hair policy at the school. And as I told Paul in the interview, it's a policy that's also wrapped in hypocrisy, because under the guise of, in quotes, professionalism, this is why we have this policy, which flies in the face of the Crown Act, which says you can't discriminate against somebody for cultural hair in the workplace. So how is the policy now professional? The second component and the hypocrisy of the policy is, if you're a Samoan boy at Saints and on your 17th birthday you get a tattoo, a native tattoo, you could get it, but you have to keep it covered at Saints. But we have faculty walking around with exposed tattoos, unkept beards, hair that doesn't apply to the policy. So if our staff isn't held to the same professional standards as the students, then what is the policy really about? And what it breaks down to is, in my opinion, I want to be very careful about what I say, the policy is really about creating as homogeneous a look on campus as we can create so that we're comfortable, as opposed to embracing the differences between people and celebrating those differences. So colonization.
Well, all right, now, and just to go on record here, we've reached out to St. Augustine. We will make this platform available to anybody from St. Augustine if they want to answer. If they choose to answer any of these comments being made by Coach Gladnick, that opportunity will be made available to you. I reached out to Principal Horn twice through email. He responded the second time. We'll run that quote somewhere in this podcast so that we'll put it up. Reading between the lines of what Principal Horn had to say was, he talked about how, well, yes, you've had success as a businessman. Yes, you can build a successful football program, but you were not part of the academic world. The implication wasn't, for a layman like myself, was that your lack of ability to fit into their school academically is what led to this dismissal. You say?
I say that a leader takes responsibility for the things that happen at his workplace. When I tell you that St. Augustine was the largest dumpster fire in the history of Division football, one football in this county, that is an absolute statement of fact. When Coach Ronnie and I first got there, I'll never forget, because what I was told by the administration is we would have about 60 on the varsity, 40 on the JV, and 100 freshmen. We had, the first workers were 11 kids there. We couldn't field a team. The numbers were abysmal. They didn't tell me that they don't fund football at all, functionally, and that you'd have to fundraise all the money. So I did put more time into fixing the problem that I was actually hired to do. Now, what Principal Horn would say is, well, I only paid him $11,000 to be the football coach. I paid him $102,000 to be a teacher. That would be a lie, because other teachers at that school with master's degrees and teaching experience would start there at a much lower salary than mine. So to actually try to make people believe he hired me to teach a fifth period PE class is one of the largest crocks I've ever heard in my whole life. I was hired to be the football coach there. I was compensated to be the football coach. And oh, by the way, I gave all the money back to the school to enhance financial aid so we could actually fix the problem that he was responsible for creating faster.
So again, I mean, back his question was, you don't fit in academia. I went to a Catholic school, and I think we talked about this. Fitting in academia there is everybody gets a one-year salary.
Yep.
It's nowhere close to $102,000 at a public school, or I mean a private school like that, and it's a one-year contract. So that's your incentive to fit in, is because you keep your mouth shut. You get your one-year contract the following year, you pay your mortgage. So you walk in, a lot of money, a lot of business success. They can't do that anymore. So is that really the issue, or is it really the issue that, because nobody got, fifth period PE doesn't get paid $100,000.
No.
It's not, and you made that clear. You're not there to teach PE.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the fact that I'm not, you have to use common sense, facts, and rationality to control someone like me. I'm not going to be controlled by, insecure leadership, false innuendo. I'm going to call it the way it is, because that's who I am. And I think at the end of the day that they're an institution that needs to be able to control their people, because that's how they operate.
So winning's not good enough. You have to win the Saints way.
Well, and the Saints way is open to a lot of definition, What I think has truly transpired here is a lot of poor assumptions were made. So like anything else in life, there was a small group of very loud dissenting voices. My son is a junior and he's not playing. My son is a senior and he's not playing. And I knew coming into this situation, based on the talent that was there when we arrived, it was going to take young talent to reestablish the program, because there was no talent.
Those kids that came in, you brought in a boatload of D1 open division kids.
Yep.
Were all those kids getting assistance to attend St. Augustine?
So how it works at Saints is they have financial aid for every student. Then upon my arrival, there was a fund of about $72,000 that they call value money that the football coach is allowed to allocate as he sees fit. The problem with their formula was that worked great when you were a D3 or 4 school by enrollment and you didn't need a lot of players.
Right.
But if you're successful, you're going to be a D1 school, you need more players to be successful. So what I was trying to do at the school was fix the program. Run it like a business. Buy the same amount of helmets every year, the same amount of shoulder pads every year. Know when you're going to retire things. Fix a whole long laundry list of problems that they had. One of those things was, to be successful at a D1 level, you need to be able to bring in 10 to 15 kids a year with each freshman class. I'm not a big transfer guy. My goal was to get the best 8th graders we could get. the way that model ended up playing out is it's about $50,000 of financial aid per class. That my ability to donate my salary along with the value money that was already there would allow us to build a model where you can bring in that number of kids every year in perpetuity.
Did you have to go into your pocket for that fund?
Well, basically, I never took a dollar of my salary.
Right, but did you enhance it from your checking
I
account?
donated in other ways to the school too, gift in kind and other things. So,
could that be viewed as, hey, I'm paying kids to play for us?
no, because it's what's done at virtually every other successful private school. And it's not pay to play. It's creating opportunities for a very diverse group of students, most of which could not attend St. Augustine High School
Without it.
without the enhancement to their financial aid. So to me, Saints, for example, has scholarships for musicians. This is, you are rewarding somebody for specific talents. Athletes are no different. Football players, baseball players,
Got it.
no different.
What is, I mean, because I think I talked to Paul, I think Brandon, everybody. I mean, over the past week, I don't think I've seen more support from players. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. I mean, if you have every single player that's coming out on social media, love you, you're a father, you're this, that, every coach saying the same thing in the county, I don't know how they validate any of this at that point, because that's what it's about.
Yeah, they can't. And here's what's terrible. After Mass this week, they wanted to keep the boys and talk to them. And a lot of parents showed up. And one of the things, again, not firsthand, second, third hand, whatever, that certain kids in the program felt left out. Well, again, in any situation like this, there's always going to be some dissenting voices. But one of the most rewarding things for me that happened at that meeting is a traditional Saint student who came from a Catholic elementary school, stood up, not a starter, not a second teamer, probably a third team kid, but we love him all the same, so it doesn't matter, stood up and looked at Mr. Horn and said, you need to understand, our brotherhood runs deeper than your brotherhood. We embody the brotherhood of the school, but our brotherhood runs deeper because of the level of love we feel for each other in this program under this group of coaches and this head coach. So within his own community, there are so many dissenting voices in his traditional student. A kid who was in my PE class, interestingly enough, a golfer, posted on Twitter yesterday about how much the relationship meant to him. It's not even in the program. So my answer to all of those accusations is, I guess what you can call them is, we love kids, period.
Well, we saw that scene in our break room here as a group of parents chose to attend the TV version of this, and they packed our cafeteria, of which, of course, I put my finger over the lens, but I hope to get video of that. So we'll show that in this podcast. But I guess where I'm going with that is, does that in any way heal this wound? I mean, you were, in poker parlance, you were all in.
Always.
Both with your emotionally, physically, financially, you were all in. Does the fact, I keep thinking of Dead Poet Society.
And time, because that poor woman barely sees
And
me.
you could speak to that, right? I mean, anybody who's involved in our line of work, their other half is the real hero of the story. But I keep thinking of that scene in Dead Poet Society when Robin Williams walks out of the classroom and they all get up on their desk. And maybe they didn't do that at St. Augustine, but the fact that so many kids are standing up for you, is that the kind of acknowledgement that feels like, you know what, this might have gone sideways really quickly, but we still connected with the kids?
No, I think that, first of all, never did this for the adults. I think if you're going to be in this business, you have to be a strong enough person to know you're going to take your fair share of bullets, darts, and if you don't have thick skin, it's not the business for you. I think the lesson here for a man like Mr. Horn is, don't ever underestimate the depth of relationships that are built in a program like ours, with coaches like ours, with parents like ours. And I think as an institution, they grossly they have grossly underestimated the amount of impact we've had on all kids.
Is the entire staff gone?
Yep.
So no Stephen Cooper, he's not sticking around. Everyone's gone.
Everyone at this point
So they're
is
back
gone.
to ground zero.
There are many coaches on the staff who would stay if Mr. Horn would leave, but
That's not going to happen.
and that's not going to happen. So
So is there? I mean, we talk this branding, the brotherhood, because that's supposed to be about the kids, and they start the brotherhood there, and then it becomes alumni and it's lifelong friends. Is the brotherhood just really about the administration, or is it just about faculty? I mean, what is the brotherhood? If it's not this, if you're listening to 100 kids and parents and you're not listening, is it really a brotherhood?
I think to us, the brotherhood was real because we created our brotherhood. I think the brotherhood is good marketing words, but I think we created an environment for our players that they were part of a real brotherhood. And that brotherhood has manifested itself in an outpouring of love, upset people, concern, and now a group of students who, quite frankly, are leaving the school because they have no belief that the administration cares for them, will look out for them, protects them, and in fact sees them differently than they see other students.
And I guess that's my other point. So you made it clear earlier, you do it the right way, you get 8th graders, you build it. After that, how do you explain this to the kids and their parents? Because they trusted in you guys to come in there, and this was going to be a 4-year deal. And how do you explain? I know it's not your fault, but how do you explain to them?
Well, I
didn't see this coming.
I think it's a lesson that we've expressed to our kids 100 times over the last couple of years. Life isn't always going to go your way. You're going to face adversity. You're going to have good times and bad times. And sometimes things are going to happen that are out of your control. And the important lesson for our players in all of this is not the adversity that comes, it's how you handle it. It's how you choose to respond to that adversity. And I know from myself and from our staff, our boys have been taught well. Even early in this season with this young team, we got kicked around a little bit. Mm-hmm. But here's the measure of the process: continuous, never-ending growth. And by, right after that Lincoln game, you didn't want to play us.
Yeah.
Because it was going to be a rough night for you. And quite frankly, in the regional state game, we lost 6 players in 5 minutes of that football game. And our Achilles heel was no depth. We were on the 2-yard line going in to go up 27-7 and couldn't punch it in because 4 of our 5 linemen were out. And I couldn't kick a field goal because our kicker was hurt. So, this is a team that, if not for a little bit of bad luck in a semifinal game, would have played for a state championship. And they were battle-hardened to do that because of the way they were trained.
If not for you and Coach Gardnero, we wouldn't have had the COVID season. You guys went up against not only local politicians, but state. You went up against the governor, for Pete's sake. And there were several times there when it looked like it was a lost cause and that you were jousting at windmills and everyone was kind of down on high school football. And the pressure to lock down was immense, and you overcame it. I'm curious, because I know there were dark days in that. I spoke to you that many times. Will the overcoming of that, are there any lessons learned there that will help you during this, what has got to be a very gut-wrenching time?
Yeah, I mean, even in the let them play movement, the lesson for our players at the time was, I'll never forget it, we had just finished a lift, and I just couldn't look at the sadness anymore. And this is what I said to the boys then. I said, fellas, there's a 99% chance I'm going to crash and burn. But here's the deal. I'm not going to be with you because I'm going to dedicate 100% of my time for as long as it takes to get sports back for you kids. And I did that. And the point of that for our boys, somebody asked me once, what was the lesson for the boys? And that no matter what in life, you try. It's okay to fail, but you have to try. And try we did, and miraculously, 6 weeks after we started, 11 days after we started, Gavin Newsom called me. I didn't call him. We got sports back.
Right.
By trying. And You know, what I've told all our boys in this situation at Saints, whether you're staying at Saints or, and I have not told one kid to leave, just to be clear. People are making the best choices for them and their families. Now, I will bend over backwards to help a kid if he decides Saints is not for him, because I want to make sure he ends up in a good place, because they're my kids. They're the school's kids, but they were my kids first, and I will not abandon my kids. And it is what it is.
And that's why, you know, you say that, and to preface this, I went to a Catholic school. I grew up Catholic. It always fascinates me because there's really 3 Catholic schools here. I go to Mater Dei and I go to Cathedral, and there's girls on campus. You can wear whatever hair you want. You can dress, I mean, they've come up to the age. And I go to Saints, and there's guys walking around like they're dressed in the Inquisition still. I mean, with incense. And how do you, going forward, and something like this happens. I'm thinking with Jaleel Tucker happened a few years ago. How do you go forward, and how do kids go to that school anymore?
Well, first of all, like when I was first there, I brought up the kids that I knew about who left under those kinds of circumstances. Mm-hmm. And the narrative was always the same. Blame the kid.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't fix a problem if you won't acknowledge the problem exists. You certainly cannot evolve. And so when you talk about Cathedral and you talk about Mater Dei, and in the time I was there, I went to him. Santa Margarita gave up their hair policy. Another school gave up their hair policy. Here, like, show that you can evolve, that you can actually function in the world as it exists, as opposed to how you want it to be. You know, and it's like you bring up these things, right? The missionary playbook. We go convert a community. Then we make you dress like us. Then we make you look like us, because that's what we're comfortable with.
And that's,
why not embrace the reality of the world? And that is, people are diverse, people are different, people come from all walks of life. Why don't you meet them where they are instead of doing things that make you comfortable?
And what do they think they're going to, at the next end? Because, I mean, ultimately, 99% of kids from Saints go to college. What do they think they're going to see on a college campus?
Yeah. Well,
the city that they're in after the college game. Or in North Park, if you walk a block away, what do you think you're going to see?
And I can just tell you things our players have told us, right? The beautiful thing about what we were doing for Saints is there was a tremendous educational opportunity for all the kids. Because our players would come down to the office and say, you can't believe what some kid just said to me. You know, like, I want to punch him in the face. And we'd be like, no, don't do that. Mm-hmm. It was an opportunity for everybody to learn. It was an opportunity for a campus to evolve, because no other organization on that campus could bring to that school what we could bring to that school, and did.
All right. At some point, we're going to stop looking backwards and start looking forwards.
Yep.
Are there opportunities for you in San Diego to continue your coaching career?
Yes.
You think?
I mean,
Why would you want to at this point?
Well, no, I'll tell you why. Because I want to finish what I started.
Well, The reality is, the beautiful thing about Saints, and one of the reasons I'm concerned about players, even in my departure, even with the hurt feelings, you know, I tried to address Jim about the announcement so that kids wouldn't be hurt before finals. He went and did what he wanted to do and hurt a whole lot of kids. There's a lot of kids taking finals these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that are not at their best because of choices he made. He's responsible for that, and I hope he's man enough to own it. But the second thing, I said to him, Jim, look, I've shown you the financial model you need to run to maintain a program like this over time. I said, so we have 2 classes of kids that I've brought in. Their future here is predicated on what do the next 2 classes look like? Are you going to maintain the model I've shown you that works? And his response to me was, instead of thinking about what's best for the kids, his response to me was, that's no longer your concern. And I looked at him, I said, it is my concern, because if you're going to go back to your old model, there's still talent spots in this program that need to be filled that are not going to get filled because you're not going to fund it. So it is my concern, because your decisions affect these 2 classes of boys that you're not responsible for, I'm responsible for.
And his response to that was?
It's not my concern. It's no longer your concern, Ron. So even in departing, I was trying to get him to be compassionate to the kids and I was trying to make sure that the program moving forward would be okay. And in the typical I'm above it all arrogant fashion that he kind of has approached things, he can't get beyond his own self to see what's best. You know, he told our parents, two of our parents in a meeting, I have $31 million in the endowment. Wonderful. You don't spend it on helping kids. We don't spend it on, yes, they enhance financial aid every year, and that's a very, very noble thing. But they have done it for years at the expense of programs that desperately need to be funded. At a school with books, you're charging $28,000 a year to go. And these are facts they can't change.
We're getting close to wrapping this up. Man, every time I chatted with you in the past year and a half, you were talking about we're building something. Look out, Paul. Keep your eye on us. And I think the results speak to that you weren't blowing wind up my skirt. Speak to the gut punch that this is for you personally. I saw the emotion in our kitchen with all those parents, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room, including your own. Can you speak to the just the hurt you feel personally? You're not going to be able to. Hard to think of a better situation for what you were trying to do than St. Augustine.
Yeah, for me, I've never worked so hard in my whole life to try to do a good thing for a school and kids, and to be able to be in an environment where you could have kids from every walk of life. I love Torrey Pines, but it's a very homogenous community. This was an opportunity to just put kids together and see what happens. And, you know, I've watched the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor develop the deepest bonds. And I'm gutted, you know, emotionally. I do everything that matters to me in my life with my heart, and I did this with my whole heart. And for petty, small, ridiculous reasons, a man took 6 hand grenades, threw it in the foxhole where the students are and the coaches are, and blew everything up because he wasn't comfortable. Because his boys maybe weren't playing as much as he wanted. And I wasn't in the community, which means like get out of my office and be on campus. What I've never said is his partner, who also works at the school, who's very, very opinionated and loud, all I would hear is constantly the negativity that she was saying about the kids, the program, the parochial school, the this, the that. Why would I want to be in that community? So I just tried to avoid it and stay in my office and do my job. So it is what it is.
If you could do one thing over again, what would you do?
Start the principal's son.
Oh, please don't go there. That's not fair. I don't want to get
his kids, like anybody else's, they're great kids.
Yeah. Kids are always great.
Zach and Matt are great kids.
And we talk. I think coaching, you know that. I mean, you never once in your coaching career go to bed pissed off or stay up at night thinking about what a kid did. It's always the parents or always the teachers, always administration.
Yes. But what did Ron Gladnick do that he wished he could do over again? Maybe that would put this decision off.
Maybe make all the transitions that desperately need to take place on that campus and at that school. I could have been more delicate. I could have been softer. I could have said, you know, maybe I won't push this now. I'll push this in a couple of months and push the next thing. But you know, on the flip side of it, I'm 62 years old. I wasn't going to do this forever. I was going to set this thing up, probably win 3 or 4 CIF titles in a row, and drift off into the sunset. But part of the goal was to set it up so that they can stop having a poor teacher coach that they woo there, quite frankly, under a lot of false pretenses, fail miserably as so many previous teacher coaches have failed at that school. It's not the coach's fault. It's the institution's fault, and they need to fix it. And what they've shown time and time again is we're not going to change anything. We're just going to keep getting a new guy when the old guy gets worn out. It's wrong. They need to fix it. It's unfair to coaches. And I will say this, if we're coming to the end, you know me. I'm a free market capitalist. You made a statement about it takes an act of God to get rid of a coach. It does. if you're a teacher who's in a union. But I'm going to tell you this right now, and I've never said this publicly before, but I speak for thousands of coaches in this state. We are the most underrepresented, most abused people in education. We put in the most time for the least amount of money and never get acknowledged for the depth of the work we do. Superintendents at every public school know the head football coach at a significantly sized high school is a full-time job, separate of teaching. But they pretend it's a seasonal job so that they don't have to compensate people properly, they don't have to do the right things. And that is the state of football. California needs to be like Texas, where a football coach is honored and paid and compensated for the job he does as a football coach. Because what we have now is a system of, if you're not represented, you can be abused by a bad admin, by a petty guy. A lot of admin can't stand the fact that he doesn't carry the community. The football coach does. A lot of these guys can't take that bruise to their ego. It is what it is.
Wise coach one told me that the football program is the front porch of the school.
Yeah, and I think I know who that guy is. His name's John Carroll. He's the greatest that's ever done it.
All right, we've hit our time limit. Coach, thank you for making KUSI the first stop. And again, the invitation goes out. If James Horn wants to come in and be podcast number 144, that invitation stands open, or any of our platforms here at KUSI. We're interested in creating an equal forum all the way through. On behalf of Paul, Burt, and Coach Ron Gladnick, PPR Podcast 143 is now toast. Turn off the machines.